Okay, we're live, ready to go. Good evening, everybody. Straight into the meeting then. Item 1, apologies. John?
An apology for absence was received from Roger Ong. Thank you.
Thank you, and Blue Councillor Borden is online. Yes? Yeah, okay. 2 minutes.
Yes, hello.
Good. To confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of August. All happy with those?
Agreed.
Sorry. Strong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Simon Roach, Co-operative member. I do have a specific question raised by the minutes, and that raises a general request, if I may. The specific question is on page 12, there's reference to the discussion we had last time around payroll access to sensitive IT capabilities. And there was an action there about the relevant officers would take away the responses to the findings to revisit and to update. And my specific question is, do we have an update on that? Is that in the papers anywhere? I didn't see that, but do we have an update on that? Thank you.
I believe that's a slightly tricky answer this evening because we have we do have an answer, I understand. Hang on. What? Simon, do you want to say something?
Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance and Capital Strategy. Apologies that we're light on finance expertise today due to a number of high-profile departures and a well-earned holiday for our interim 151 officer means that there's very limited support today. However, buying time for Chris, our HR manager behind me, to have a quick look and see if he can give you a quick summary, but otherwise we'll come back to you as soon as possible with a written response. But thanks, it's a really valid point that you make, and perhaps I'll talk to the 151 and we'll make sure that we get answers to you or actions completed ahead of the meeting instead of you having to resort to asking questions within the meeting.
What I was going to say at the beginning actually was that we are light due to holidays and unscheduled departures, etc. But any questions that you do raise will have written responses before the next meeting. Is that okay? More?
Sorry, thank you very much, Chairman. So that was my specific question, which raises a general request. My general request, and I have mentioned this before several meetings ago, is I do think it would be helpful if the committee could keep a record of actions agreed and perhaps have that as a rolling list that we have in our papers, because I do worry that actually the things crop up and actions sort of are agreed, but then we don't follow through. So for example, if I look back through my notes, we had a discussion around extreme risks, which I think are now termed differently, principal risks, but that we would do a deep dive on those, and I don't think that's ever come up on the agenda. And as you know, Mr. Chairman, we've had many discussions about overdue actions from internal audit and getting the owners here to take accountability to explain what they're doing in the interim period while the risk is still outstanding, etc. I don't know if any of those action owners are here today for those actions that we'll be looking at later. But there are several things like that that I feel we might lose or we have lost. And I think it would be really helpful if we could have that actions list, please. Thank you very much.
We are working together with the officers where there's been delays in the schedule. Officers will come to explain those delays. During the period from the last meeting, a number of matters have been resolved, and I believe when SWAP give their report, they will comment on that as well. But you may recall at the last meeting, we specifically said in future meetings that would be the case. Thank you. Okay. So we will move on to declarations of interest. Does anybody have a declaration of interest? No. Public participation time. We have no public participation recorded this evening. And in the minutes of the Audit and Governance Subcommittee, no meetings have been held. We therefore move to item 6, which is the report of the internal audit activity, and that will be from Sally White of SWAP.
Thank you, Chair. Sally White, Assistant Director, SWAP Internal Audit Services. This is our second full update report for 25-26, and there are a number of ongoing concerns that are leading us to continue to offer a limited rolling opinion. We're working with the Council to validate that the concerns around the contract and expenditure compliance review, and also that the investigation findings are fully resolved. Additionally, there are ongoing concerns around outstanding actions as well. We only have one ongoing significant corporate risk, which is the contract and expenditure compliance, but our follow-up work has shown good progress on implementing the actions. We did have another significant risk around business continuity planning. However, the final action, which was delayed until the end of the year, has now been implemented, and as a result, we now believe that that risk has been adequately mitigated. We're also in the process of agreeing the detailed actions resulting from our investigation work. This work has followed a slightly different route to our usual audit work, and we're meeting with a member of the organisational learning group to agree a detailed action plan, which we will then monitor and follow up. Page 2 of our report shows a table of audit coverage and average opinions mapped against the organisation's principal risks. These were only introduced in May this year, which is why there are still some gaps in our coverage. Our audit board system will allow you to view our coverage against the previous strategic risks, which were used prior to the principal risks, and these are demonstrating fuller coverage. Page 3 shows performance scores. Page 4 provides some dashboard information on our overdue actions, and there is further information in a table in Appendix B on page 7 onwards. Page 6 is the summary report on the follow-up work on contract and expenditure compliance, which is looking positive with only 5 of 16 actions left to implement. We've already started work on following up those remaining actions that are becoming due at the end of September. Appendix B is the table of overdue actions or actions with multiple implementation date extensions. As you will see, the green-coloured areas of the table are those actions that have now been implemented and closed on our system. At the last committee, a decision was taken, as discussed earlier, that the committee would invite officers to attend to talk about long overdue actions within their service area. In consultation with the chair, we've identified some specific officers who had been invited to the meeting this evening to talk to members directly. However, since the publication of our report, we have been able to close many of the actions owned by officers who were invited to attend. I'm happy to take any further questions from members.
Questions? I do believe that that report says we've had a modicum of success in following our statement of the last meeting. Does anybody have any questions? Sorry, I'll get it right. Brian.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, Councillor Ryan Holloway, Ward Member for Wareham. Just would like a little bit of clarity on page 27, where it's about contract and expenditure, where it says about commercial and procurement will run monitoring reports periodically and undertake spot checks. That just seems a little bit vague, it does to me, Chairman. It does, because it doesn't sort of state in there about when checks will happen. It just says periodically and undertake. So could we just possibly have some sort of further clarity on when, how frequent are these checks going to be taking place regarding that? Thank you.
Yeah, we are actually working very closely with procurement currently, reviewing the reports that they get, looking at a sample of some of these transactions, so that we can define what we believe would be, you know, a good sample, what needs to be checked and how often that needs to be checked. So we haven't been absolutely specific within the action, but rest assured we are working with procurement to ensure that those checks are taking place when they need to.
Okay, follow up?
Just a quick one, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, thank you for your response to that. I mean, I totally understand on what you say there, obviously, about saying if something needs to, let's do it. But I would be a little bit more reassured if there was something a little bit more set in stone, you know, in writing on there, rather than just saying random spot checks. It just feels like to me that, you know, something could easily slip through without us noticing. That would just be my concern. Thank you.
I believe Jonathan Mayer would like to make a contribution to the answer.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman. Jonathan Mayer, Director of Legal and Democratic. Just to say that a monthly report is being produced by procurement colleagues. So a monthly specialist professional services report, which I and colleagues are receiving on a monthly basis, alongside a report dealing with interim and agency recruitment as well. So both of those aspects are being picked up on a monthly frequency. Thank you.
And I have Spencer.
Thank you very much, Chairman. On a broader note, Sally, good report, lots of clarity in it. What concerns me are some of the outstanding actions that have got whiskers on them, quite frankly, and it's disappointing because if there are actions that are valid and improve the quality of the decision-making, the process of the council, they need to be dealt with in a timely manner. And I'm not going to go into them one by one because we'd be here a long time, but there's one that's over a year old and it's already gone past its revised date. And I want to say this in the public domain. I think it's very important that the public appreciate how important we take good governance in this council. And if we put dates down because we've got actions to fulfil, then we should fulfil them. If there's an issue, then we should draw it to the attention of the council so that we can deal with the matter, so we get the benefits, and it is benefits, of actions that are identified by internal audit. So we get them embedded into our processes and our policies, so we improve the outcomes of this council. So there's a number of items in here. You can read them for yourselves. I'm not going to read them individually tonight. Those in the room will be aware of where there are actions that need to be fulfilled. Can I please ask, and I do take the point about the spot checks and Jonathan's comment about regular reporting back on that. We need to get our actions up to date. If officers agree and with members to fulfil an obligation within a timeline, they need to meet that timeline. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Jill Haynes from Chalk Valleys. there's going to be a comment, and I will be talking to other officers about this, but it's just something to raise. And actually, it was the Cabinet paper for our future council looking for the 12 million plus for IT that drew to my attention this. When we talk about procurement and we have a tender cost, or we have a amount of money that we put aside for that tender, it's come to my attention that that doesn't include the cost of drawing up the tender documents or in order to make the procurement. And this can be a considerable cost. And when we come to a big tender process like that, it won't be something that's in the general budget for either legal or procurement or whichever directorate it is, IT possibly in this case, to have the resources to do that. And it doesn't give us as councillors a true cost of what it's going to be to procure whatever it is we're procuring. So I'm just flagging that up. It's something I'm intending to speak to further to other officers about, but it should be more transparent what the actual costs are of going out to a tender, and that isn't the true cost if we don't include our internal costs for it.
Okay. I'm not sure that isn't in a different budget, but without Sean or I can't comment. But I'll make a note for you. Councillor Parry.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Parry, West Parley Ward. On page 30 of the report, it refers to the current commensurate contract finishing in April 2026, with an option to further 12-month extension until April 2028. Is it a 12-month extension to April 27 or a 24-month extension to April 28? And also, could I also just inquire, Commensura has not always enjoyed the best of reception amongst elected members in this chamber, if I can put it like that. You do refer to it having to operate within a lawfully way within the contract procurement rules. Could you give us a sense, please, officers, of what that would look like in an operational term?
So I'm scanning the room for Jonathan. Did you want to make a comment, please?
Chairman, thank you. I can deal with the first question. I might need Councillor Parry to repeat the second one because I was concentrating on the first one at that point. So the contract, the scheduled end date for the contract is April 2026, but we have the option of 2 one-year extensions, which at the very outside then will take us through to April 2028.
Thank you. Did you have a supplementary?
So you would take that as a one-year extension at a time rather than a 2-year extension. Okay. The second part, of course, is the engagement of Commensura, which has not always enjoyed the best of reputations amongst elected members. It's certainly seen the headlines on a national level once or twice. Could you perhaps enlighten me as to, when you talk about it being used lawfully and within the contract procurement rules, what that actually looks like operationally? What would be exceeding the authority of use, or indeed what the requirements of it would be to operate effectively and be deemed to be good value for money?
Jonathan?
Chairman, I can deal with the lawfulness part of it. Probably not the right person to deal with finance, but I was one of the actions for me arising from the review that was carried out by SWAP was to decide whether there was a need for me to issue a report under Section 5A of the Local Government and Housing Act. And that's a report which I'm required to issue if the council ever acts unlawfully or is likely to have acted unlawfully. So with the benefit of advice from colleagues in legal services, I've concluded that the way that we're operating the commensurate contract and using it to procure what we call statements of works is lawful and within scope of that procurement. So there is nothing straightforwardly unlawful with that contract, which would require me to intervene and issue a Section 5A report to the Cabinet and to the full Council.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm grateful, of course, to Jonathan for his comprehensive answer in terms of legalities. Disappointed that we haven't heard from SLT in terms of how we go about using such an organisation in procurement terms and what they would deem to be the limits of wanting to engage with such a company. One of the frustrations for elected members has long been is that the procurement process inside Dorset Council does seem to be slightly mystifying at times. And it would be helpful to understand from a value point of view how they would go about using an organisation like Commensura to justify extending their current contract.
Right, Sam, did you want to contribute?
I think it's a good challenge, and this is why we're working on that consolidated plan, which looks at not just the technical actions arising from the swap audit and the swap investigation, but how that translates into how we do business in future. So in November, we'll be coming to Audit and Governance Committee to present that report, which is much more comprehensive, and it contains those themes that we need to absolutely follow through as the Council starts to consider changing its processes and whether we would continue to use platforms like Commensura. But ultimately, there's an education piece here, making sure that procurement advice is lawful but also understood fully by employees to make sure that we can improve our compliance with those processes. So it is part of that consolidated plan, and I'll be happy to talk in more depth about that in November.
You happy with that? And we'll discuss more in November. Thank you. Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Andy Todd, Coal Hill, Wimborne, Minster East. I am in favour of action lists coming back to Council on a regular basis and then having an opportunity to hear officers report on what actions have actually been taken as a result. I follow up with Councillor Flowers. I'm sitting here looking at 2 entries that have been revised 3 and 4 times respectively. Completion time days, 788 days and 655 days. I did go through every single line of that table to have a look at them. I'm not sure why we're not going through them, because it seems to me if somebody's got to be holding people to account as to why these things aren't happening. I do wonder, is there a difference here between what should be business as usual, the day job, and initiatives, things that are happening because a problem's emerged and we're taking immediate action, whether they should be dealt with in a different format or at a different time?
I think we've tried to centre on this throughout the last several meetings, and I thought that we are moving forward, I believe. A number of actions over and above what we've seen as the norm have taken place since we started looking at this in far more detail, and I anticipate that this will improve. It's something that we're constantly monitoring. We have meetings with SWAP, before all of these meetings, and we look at these. They are being monitored all the time, and we've stated that where we want officers to come, they will come to this meeting, they will explain the situation. SWAP are doing their best also to give an explanation for why, and some of them, the longer ones, there are reasons behind that, which we've been given. But all I can say is that we will have that log in future. We will create that log so that we can see not just this, but our own log of things that are raised in this forum and are not followed up, or they should be. We'll make sure that happens. And we will continue with this work to bring these dates in line. And would you like to contribute?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Chairman. I should have said Spencer Flower Verwood Ward when I first started speaking this evening. Andy makes a good point, but I think we've, as Gary rightly says, we've been commenting about the need to for timely actions. The important thing for me is, and I do agree with the idea of having actions arising from meetings, so we get a clarity about what needs to be done and when it should be done by. And I think what we've done tonight is set that scene in public to officers, that that's what we expect as a committee going forward. And I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to dwell on the individual items tonight. We'd be here a very long time. I want to give the officers the opportunity to deal with the items that are substantially outstanding, so when we have the meeting in November, we get a much better understanding then of what actions have been taken, are being taken, to make sure that we get all the actions resolved in a timely manner so we get ourselves up to date. I think that's the essence of what I was trying to put across earlier. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, I would say that also that obviously it's also our role to support SWAP to get this work done. And where, if it is the case that there's a reason that it's being blocked or it's not being done, we need to get to the bottom of it and we need to ensure that it is done. So our role is also very much supportive of SWAP, because these actions are from SWAP. This is the work they're trying to do, which will influence reports and the future of the way the council works all the time. So when it's behind, it's unsatisfactory. Doesn't matter really how many days. All right, you can deem that more days is worse, but the fact is it's not being done on time. And we are very much aware of that. Anybody else got anything else on this particular report? No, okay. So we're now going to move to 7, which is the period for financial management report. I've said we're significantly light on officers, and fortunately the portfolio holder, Councillor Clifford, is going to present it, I understand. Is that right? You can do, if you like, sorry. Yeah. Okay. John has pointed out that we do have officers here today. If there's any particular one who wants to make a report about the times in the schedule, more than welcome to. So I'm closed.
Hello, hi. I'm Louise Ryan. I'm the Head of Service for Birth to Settled Adulthood, and I was asked to attend the committee to explain about the 2 outstanding actions that we have for direct payments within the Birth to Settled Adulthood team. So I'm happy to to be here tonight to update and address the committee. The first one is an update to the direct payments policy. The date originally for that was the 30th of April 25. I can confirm that the service has been working on that and it is in progress. And we have a draft policy which is due to be presented at our internal quality assurance meeting for the 10th of November 25. And there was an associated action on terms of training staff for their revised policy, which we believe will be completed by January 26. There was also an associated action regarding the financial checks and reviews and reclaiming of money. That is connected to some improvement work that we are doing. We've been asked to implement an automated system on that rather than using a manual process of recording. So we have invested in a resource, a specific business analyst who is helping us plan those amendments at the moment. That work is in progress, and we believe that that will be completed with a new process to begin in February 26. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's very helpful. And sorry, I jumped ahead before you had the chance to contribute. Anybody else? Simon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can just make a comment. Thank you very much for that update. Just on these long outstanding actions, for me, one of the most important things is to understand what the risk is that we're carrying because we've delayed implementation. So it's interesting to know what's being done to progress the action, but actually a reminder of the risk that we're carrying and if there's any mitigation in the interim period. Otherwise, we're just holding that risk open. That for me, that's the important bit. So if we look at these in future, if I could ask perhaps SWAP to remind us of the risk that we're actually carrying, that's really important. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's important. So what we can say in the meantime is, in terms of the recommendations and the actions that SWAP have given to us, we have incorporated that into the practice of the day-to-day team. So we are up to date with an annual review of all of our children's short breaks, direct payments, and we are able to review the bank accounts and do the checks on a yearly basis at the moment, and recover any money that is additional that the family won't be using. And we hope that with our automated process, that will make it even quicker for us, and we seek to increase the frequency of those checks.
Thank you. That's helpful. I think this is more, the question is really more for SWAP, isn't it? About how we rate things in relation to the number of days that are overdue. I believe that's what you're intimating would be. Yeah, but just so there is no associated, if you like, risk register to these particular actions. So we don't actually know whether they're highly important or whether they're merely something that needs doing at some stage in the future. I don't know if we can do something about that, Sally, when you're reporting. If you could give us an insight into just how important that would be if it was to be done now rather than later.
We do, obviously, we prioritise all our findings, and we have talked in the past about the definition of a priority 2 or a priority 1. Priority 1 is our highest priority. Priority 2 is a action that needs to be actioned by management. So yes.
Thank you. Just a bit of consultation. Did you want to come back, Simon?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So, sorry, just to underpin what I was looking for, I'm not so much interested in the rating because we've kind of got that in the finding, but it's a reminder for us of what really is the risk that the organisation is carrying that is sitting outstanding for such a long period of time before the action is addressed. That's really what I'd like to sort of bring to the surface. And if the action owner is taking some interim steps to mitigate that risk, then that's helpful to understand. That's really what I'm trying to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Ford, do you have comments on your...
Stephen Ford, Corporate Director for Strategy, Performance and Sustainability. I may have been picked up because I was nodding vigorously, but I think I think that understanding how risk is being carried as opposed to just the outstanding actions, I think is a critical part of this process, and I think that's certainly something. Working with the risk team and the performance team as well, that I think we need to start having a better understanding of and articulating that accordingly, because as you say, that it's the number of days that something is outstanding, as long as there's appropriate mitigations in place and there's a thorough understanding of what's being done to mitigate that risk. That's a very different conversation and presentation to just saying, yeah, X number of days overdue. So I think that's certainly something we'd want to take away as well.
Thank you very much. Finally, on this, Chris, did you have a contribution? Thank you.
So the first, there we go. Yes, thank you. Chris Kippax, Mr. Ward. I think I'm just supporting what's been said. To me, it appears that what we've got here is a question of trying to identify qualitatively what is necessary to be done to make sure that we fully understand the risks, as I said, not just in ranking order, but actually in order of what the impact might be if something goes wrong, given the length of time it might have been outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chris Matthews, Head of People and Workforce. Just an update on one of the actions from me as well that was in the report, and that's the action with regards to consultancy and agency spend. I can confirm that that action has now been completed, and Closed and Swap colleagues have provided assurance now that they're satisfied with the work that's been undertaken there. The delay was primarily linked to the outcome being timed with the launch of Connected Audit, our new joint venture for agency workers, and we had to let Connected Audit bed in before we were able to access the reporting capabilities that we need to be able to get the data, and we now have that access, and that so we've now got a comprehensive dashboard that's been pulled together that has lots of information around consultancy agency spend with regards to cost, length of placement, so that we can actively use that to monitor our agency spend.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions at this stage? Councillor Clifford.
Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. Whilst we're updating some of these items almost live in the meeting, the second one on list right underneath Chris's is the £500 spending. That's now been updated and done. And just as an example of how sometimes it's not just risk, but it's also sort of importance, but it's got a slightly different interpretation on it. So if you go to page 29, the housing service will ensure temporary accommodation rent set at level recommended by the Housing Revenue Accounts Guidance, which has got a long date on it. This has been taken out of this arena and moved into the budget. So there's a thorough rent review that's going to take place. So there's no immediate impact or risk to the authority other than financial, but it is an important piece of work that we need to be quite painstaking and thorough as we go through it. So it will take some time. Throughout the report, there are numerous items that are schema delegation. Many of those are underway, and this committee's been very, very hot on understanding what's happening and where it's going. And I think November is the council meeting that the new schema delegation will be coming to for everyone to have a view on it then. So although this is a really useful document, it very quickly gets out of date. And there's a lot going on, as we've already heard from 3 or 4 different people. Updates are coming through all the time. I think we do need to think how we update it faster, and so this committee is advised of the latest position rather than as, even though it's only a month old, a historic position.
Thank you. Anybody else have any contributions? Sorry, Andrew. Go on. You're obscured by this.
Thank you, Chair. On page 23, under the adult and housing banner, I think people may be a little surprised to read flexi balance and long working days we monitored more effectively in line with corporate expectations. I think they'd be somewhat surprised to know that they haven't been effectively monitored. And I'd like to understand to what extent we see this as an issue. Is it a small minority that are affected by this, or is it costing the organisation and putting the council at risk of poor reputation as a employer of choice, that this has been flagged here? And also I'd want to understand, is this being driven by those employees who work remotely, especially those working from home?
Sally, would you like to respond?
I'll do my best. This was actions resulting from an investigation that took place over a year ago. We now have confirmation that appropriate action has been taken with regard to the flexi, and that action has now been signed off. In terms of sort of wider issues, I couldn't comment on that because this was a specific and quite narrow piece of work.
In that case, could perhaps Chris Matthews or somebody in the HR department perhaps offer us a written explanation as to why this matter has arisen and what steps have been taken to avoid it happening in future?
Happy to come in, yes. As Sally said, this particular incident that's referenced here was linked to an investigation into one team within the adult social care area of the council. This was not intended to reflect a wider issue or suggest there is a wider issue within the council. We do provide a lot of support and guidance to our managers to ensure that they do, as part of their regular supervisions with staff, look at working hours, look at workloads, and look at flexi balances. That information is available to managers to see and access. So we don't, I wouldn't suggest this is indicative of a wider issue, but certainly happy to pick it up as an area of exploration in the future.
In respect of this being a relatively narrow brief then, what were the red flags? Did we see a heightened level of sickness and absenteeism? Did we see costs to the organisation of poor decision making, or did we see a higher staff turnover rate and a reliance therefore on placing things like agency staff?
Again, this was an incident involving the work of a small number of individuals in a team and a need to understand the boundaries between two different roles that they held within the council. So it was not picked up through any increase in sickness or mental health concerns or pressure. This was picked up as a result of individuals acting in a professional capacity for the council, but also best interest assessor capacity as well. So it was a very specific incident within adult social care.
Right, is that anybody else? Right, now that all appears to be a bit haphazard because as we were moving through the agenda, it was my intention to take this towards the end. But what I suggest in future we do, because it's actually not on the agenda, we'll introduce an agenda item where officers who've been asked to come to give reports have a specific, so it'll be directly after the minutes of audit and governance. It'll be the first thing that we take in future so that this doesn't, because it appears very disjointed. It's like I was going to ignore you, I wasn't ignore you, I've got your names here, I've got a list, but I was going to take it at the end. But in future, and I'm sure that you're disappointed that you could potentially miss the meeting, the rest of the meeting, but in future you will always be item 6, okay, so that you know, and then you'll have the option of going on or staying. Okay, is that for information? That's going to happen from now on, because it's not, although we asked you, for some reason we didn't actually make an agenda item. So I thought I'd agree with John, but we'd take it at the end, but I think, anyway, that's the way it is. In future, item 6. So we will now move. Thank you very much, anyway, everybody for helping. We will now move to item 7, which is the period 4 financial management report, which, due to the lack of finance officers, will be taken by the portfolio holder. And I think where specific questions are not answerable, we will give a written response. Would that be acceptable? Thank you.
Councillor Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. So I'll do little more than just to apologise again. It's just the way circumstances have fallen that that our 151 is away. I'll do little more really than introduce the report. You've got the recommendations to note it in front of you. It went through Cabinet, was it only last week? I've lost all sense of timescales nowadays. It seemed a long time ago, but probably wasn't. The report is in front of you. Effectively, in summary, it's saying that we are forecasting a £7.7 million overspend at this time of year. The overspend is largely coming from social care, and the biggest element of that social care is within children's. As I said at the Cabinet meeting, I'm not ashamed to say it again, it's what we're here for. It's to, these are pressures on our resources because of people needing our help and support. So in terms of adults, it's just under £1 million, and in children's, it's just over £4 million. These are due to extra numbers of people coming through. Allied to that is the costs of care are also changing. Surprisingly, you'll see in the report in terms of adults that there's been a slight dip in the cost of care. In children's, it's drastically different, very, very different. And at a briefing last week, we were told by the Director of Children's that and some care is costing up to 20% or 21% more per week per child. So it is an extremely volatile market. And although we're forecasting 7.7 million through to the end of the financial year, I've no doubt that will change and the pressure will be on it to go upwards as we get closer to our budget setting in February. So with your indulgence, Chair, we've got quite a number of SLT members who are sitting in the chamber ready to ask questions in their specific areas. If I can help at all, I'll be very happy to. I suspect that my knowledge will be dwarfed by theirs, so I'm happy to be usurped in this case. But if I can help, please do call on me.
Thank you. I wouldn't like to think of you as usurped, but I'm sure. Do we have questions? So, Mr. Roach.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Simon Roach, Co-operative member. I do have a question on children's services. I've been quite vocal in the past about the ability of directorates to maintain budget, and whilst I understand that it's a demand-driven service, and it's important that we deliver the service needed, the cost of care bit is the bit I'd like to just understand a bit. So the reason given for overspend is around complexity of need, inflation, and market failure. And those three reasons have been consistent. So ever since I joined this committee 2 years ago, those same three reasons have come up. And there's a reference to the Competition and Market Authority report in 2022 that describes the market failures that there are. However, in that report, it also talks about opportunities that are available to try and offset some of that market failure. And it talks about, the report talks about having seen considerable evidence of local authorities working together to make them more effective. So collaborating across different authorities to increase purchasing power because there's an asymmetry in terms of the suppliers and the consumers here. So my question is, to what extent has Dorset looked at those collaborative opportunities to increase the purchasing power that it has with any of the care providers? Thank you.
Yes, we are looking, and there are some. I'm sorry, Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. Apologies. Yes, the director is looking. It's doing this in two ways. It's actually looking within for a start. So you'll know that there's a new drive to work together with adults for birth to settled childhood, as a for instance. So instead of one directorate looking after a child once they turn 18, another one looking up to 18, there is work going on to find out what can be done. Just last week, the director of Children's was at a Southwest conference where they had a peer review where they were in groups of three. One would be a reviewer, one would be an independent observer, and one would be reviewed in the services that were carried out. And then it would all swap around in different areas. And the learning coming from that is really quite exciting in what you can share. Another particular area is looking in it's not purchase power exactly, but the power of working together for foster care. How do other people lever in more foster carers, which is the absolute ultimate if we can get more children out of care and into foster? It's far more beneficial for the children's outcomes. It's also coincidentally cheaper for the council, but that's the secondary aim of it. So there's a lot of that going on. We are in a fortunate position that our children are rated by Ofsted as outstanding, and so it's almost the other way round, that councils are coming to us to say, what are you doing that's so good? How are you staying within your budget? And largely, this council, as Children's Services, have done extraordinarily well over the last 5-6 years or so in largely remaining within budget. This is a notable change this year, but it's still reasonably small in terms of its scale. And the director will say that that was largely down to numbers going up. That trend seems to have levelled off and, in fact, maybe even going down again. So we are hopeful that there will be some opportunities to readjust the forecast as we move forward. In terms of procurement, I think it's a good challenge, and I will take that back and get a more thorough response to you in whether we share our buying power with other local councils and see if that happens. It's not something I'm particularly aware of, but I do know at an intellectual level it certainly happens. Whether it actually translates itself through a procurement process, I'll find out and let you know in a written response.
Thank you. Others? Steve, I'll go to Steve first because he was...
Good evening, Chair. Thank you very much. Steve Mercer from Blackmore Vale. Everybody in this chamber wants Dorset Council to remain masters of its own destiny from a financial perspective. And Simon, I agree with you. These numbers are small, aren't they, when you look at the overspend? Where they become more relevant, though, overspends, is that they have to be made good out of reserves, and those reserves aren't finite, are they? Or are finite, rather. What I would... So I have two requests and a question. I would like to see in this pack some greater analysis of our free reserves, so I know what headroom we actually have to meet future year deficits. In the transformation group, I know of changes being made there that are not costed. And when I asked what the likely cost of those would be, it was, we don't know. And it concerns me that we're making decisions in a vacuum. So I would like to have some understanding of what the reserves look like, what the committed reserves are and what the free reserves are, so that we know the level of reserves we could use to balance the books at the end of the year. That's my one question. My second one is, we all sat and discussed the health and safety issues, didn't we? And could we have picked up errors and omissions in the forecasts, in the financials that we were being provided with? I would like to see, on an exceptions basis, a bit of a deeper dive into the numbers where the directorates are not meeting their targets. I have an understanding of what Children's does, but I would like to have a deeper dive into those numbers. For instance, somebody asked me what Coombe House... I assume Coombe House School is in the children's numbers. I also understand that it's working very much below capacity. Now, the question came to mind there, could something be done there to make up that shortfall? Could it actually market itself to other authorities? Jill is shaking her head, so there's a bit of education for me. And my last bit, this is my question. So in the executive summary on page 75, it says, SLP is preparing to implement enhanced financial controls to manage discretionary spending. Could I ask, what does that look like? And have we controlled discretionary spending, or are we just, or is the, I'm saying the budget, the spend is going unchecked, but I'd just like to know what checks and balances we are putting in place and what expenditure we are potentially deferring because the budget isn't there. So 2 requests and a question.
Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. If I start, and then hopefully some of the SLT members will come forward. So we start off saying we're forecasting a £7.7 million overspend, and the question is that will have to come from reserves. If it's not mitigated, it will have to come from reserves. There is mitigation in place, and some of my colleagues behind me will be able to explain what some of that mitigation is, the spending controls that you've referenced in your third question there. At the minute, we have contingencies that are held specifically for overspend and the risk of overspend. So at the minute, I'm relatively comfortable that the level of contingency we hold and the overspend we're forecasting they mitigate each other. In terms of performance, I'll leave that to, fortunately, we've got some of our performance team in and they can perhaps answer that one. And then the actual spending controls that are in place will go across each directorate, and perhaps one of the directors from SLT could summarise what everyone is doing rather than bouncing from one to another. But I think it's probably, you'll get a more detailed view, and I see that Jan Britton, Executive Director of Place, is putting his hand up ready to answer that part of the question. But I hope the first part, really important, is our overspend going to come out of reserves? At the minute, it's coming out of a contingency held for specifically that reason.
Thank you to Simon for the introduction, but just in case, Jan Britton, Executive Director for Place. Previously, in senior leadership team management meetings, budget was part of the overall agenda. So we would have a slot for budget management on the agenda that might range across a number of other issues. More recently, the Chief Executive has asked me to take up the chair of a new regular monthly budget meeting, which is SLT spending time examining the budget and looking at the council's whole budget, or the budget as a whole, rather than its departmental blocks. So we have a better forum to discuss where there are pressures in the budget and what we might do elsewhere in the budget to mitigate those pressures, and a place where we can address the sort of question that you raised about, what is discretionary spend, because there's always a choice, or there's mostly a choice about expenditure, perhaps the exception of the sort of children's placements that we were talking about a moment ago, where colleagues are faced with enormous spending pressures with very little choice sometimes. But in a lot of other areas of the budget, there are choices about how quickly work is done, to what extent work is done, when budgets are deployed, when they're held back. And at times of budget pressure, which is what we're facing, the key to a solution generally lies in managing the whole of the budget together rather than departmental segments of the budget, which sort of allows the overspends to creep in without other colleagues across the senior leadership team considering that there might be pressures on them to react. So the new meeting the Chief Executive has asked me to chair is specifically intended to manage the whole of the council's budget and to have the time to have those discussions. First meeting of that group was on the 6th of October. We're going to meet again at the end of this month, and then we will meet at least monthly thereafter.
Jan, thank you for that. Simon, I'm not trying to be contrary, but when I look at the numbers, and I am a very logical person, I don't see a line that says contingency. What I was after is just some insight into what the reserve position was. If you're telling me that currently forecast 6.391 doesn't need to touch the reserve because there's a contingency in there somewhere, that's good news. But if it does have to come out of reserves, I'd just like to know, because we all want to be masters of our own finances, don't we? I just need to see that there is that we have headroom in our reserves. I'm just conscious the transformation group took 12 million out of reserves. You know, it's a number that we don't see, and I think we ought to have that visibility of it. So I repeat my question.
I'm very happy to get that circulated when Sean comes back. Off the top of my head, and forgive me, this is off the top of my head, we have general reserves of roundabouts 35 million and earmarked reserves of roundabouts 112 million. It's ballpark figures, and maybe that might be out 5% each way, but I will get accurate figures sent around to everyone on the committee.
Thank you. Finished?
Sorry. 35 doesn't sound a lot if the contingency issue doesn't apply when we're getting close to double figures anyway, does it? I'll shut up now.
Thank you very much. Councillor Haynes, Chalk Valleys. I'm looking at page 72 and 73, and in particular, it's something that I've been involved in. I know it's really complex, but I am struggling to understand why there is £28 million worth of adult social care debt, but only 17 million collectible. And then when we go a bit further on to page 75, it's got 12 that are going to be written off, but there's no story behind that as to why that's a write-off. And it also says that it's a small proportion. So I realise that setting these figures out is very complicated because there is always a row with the NHS about continuing healthcare and who's paying for what. And that in addition to that, there are quite a substantial number of elderly people who have charges put on their property that are eventually then paid for when the property is sold and they have passed. So it's a complex issue, but it still seems at 10 million between the what is the debt and what is the collectible debt, quite a big chunk of money that we'd quite like.
And I mean, it's not, if you look at the tables, it's what is currently collectible as opposed to what is actually collectible. So it's where some of that's not going to be collectible now because it's deferred. I believe it's the sort of answer I used to give, but yeah, sorry.
Yes, Jem's exactly right, and it might be that somebody has a deferred payment on their house, but someone's still living in it, and so that sometimes means that there'll be a significant delay before you can actually collect the debt that is owed. But it's a good point, and again, if you're interested in exploring debt, then we can easily arrange that and go into it in more detail.
I'm just thinking in these reports, just a little bit more of the storyline to go with that would be really helpful, because it does say that the deferred payments, you've got about 4 million in deferred payments, you've got all this money being written off. It'd be useful to know why it's being written off. 12 million's a lot to write off.
Done.
So I think what I'll ask the 151 officer to do is for the next series of reports is to expand on some of these areas so you've got more detail, because it then gives you the ammunition with whether you want to pursue questions in that area or elsewhere. So I think that a little bit more detail will be helpful across the board, but particularly in the debt area.
Sorry, I will come to you, Simon. I've got Councillor Parry next.
Thank you. Returning to our children in care, and I appreciate it. Probably more helpful if the Director for Children was here or the Cabinet member. But I did just want to, it is referenced but not detailed, which is, of course, the role of Dorset Council with unaccompanied children, those seeking asylum in us. And under the National Dispersal Scheme, I believe that number was round about 67 children or young people. There certainly was a case that, despite bold statements from Whitehall, the reality was there was a funding gap, and we were meeting that funding gap. And I think the figure was about £300,000 or £400,000, if that's still correct. Has that been addressed, or is that going to be an ongoing cost pressure to us as an authority? And the other question evolves around what would be rather colloquially described as high-cost placements, Tier 4 bed provision for those who are perhaps in a mental health crisis. And there was a rather unsavoury bidding war between local authorities, running into tens of thousands of pounds a week for such a bed. Is that still the marketplace that we are operating in, or has that become a more civilised and dignified place for our children and young people?
This is my position as the Cabinet Member for Finance, not for children, so I'm slightly sideways on from it. Unaccompanied asylum seekers is ongoing. We have, as a council, whole council, written to government asking for that to be addressed, and nothing has come of it. The second point, remind me about it again, Andrew. Yes, that marketplace where extreme costs are forced upon the council is still the same position. It is still a very uncomfortable position in which we find ourselves. I will, though, ask the Director of Children's to drop you a note direct about how he feels whether the marketplace has become more civilised or not. I know that, though, it is an extremely expensive place, but again, funding that we are required to and happy to provide.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Mr. Roach.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow up on the reserves question, because I think that there's some important questions here. So on page 69, paragraph 27.3, it talks about, unless some currently earmarked reserves can be repurposed, this could mean that the council would be required to use its general fund reserve, reducing the balance from 7% to 6%. Etc., etc. But at the end it says, this is a cause for real concern as the minimum operating level for the council to hold in its general fund would be 5%, and this use of reserves would take us down to 6.8%. My question is, what is the consequence of going below 5%? Is that just a policy decision, or is there some event that's triggered as a result of hitting that number? It's probably a question for the Section 151 officer, but that's my question. Thank you.
Yes, it's a good question, and thank you for pointing that paragraph out, because it's got some of the information you were after, Simon, so I was a little bit out on general, but not too far out. The consequence, so the Society of County Treasurers have a recommended figure, which is your reserves, your general reserve should be between 5 and 10%. There's no penalty for being over, apart from it will affect your audit position, because you're not making prudent use of the finances. There's no penalty for being under, other than you attract attention to yourselves if it looks like you're a council in stress. So there's no penalty, but there are consequences.
Okay. Any more questions on this particular subject? No. Well, thank you, Simon, for helping us out. We will move to item 8, which I know you've patiently been waiting. Over to you, Chris.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. And once again, good evening to all at Audit and Governance Committee. I'm Chris Swain, Dorset Council's Risk Management and Reporting Officer. I'm joined today as well by Liz Crocker, our Head of Strategy. I'd just like to take this opportunity to walk you through the highlights of the risk management update. So first off, I'm pleased to confirm that following presentation to committee, Dorset Council's risk appetite statement has been approved by a delegated authority by the Leader of the Council, and it will be published in the forthcoming risk management framework, which you'll find under Appendix A of our report. And this marks the next phase embedding the statement into the organisation's operations, ensuring a consistent and aligned approach to risk-taking. Secondly, since the report's publication, we've made significant progress on the enhanced risk dashboard, and as of today, we've adopted a phased launch approach, starting with legal and democratic services. All directorates will be fully migrated by mid-November to the new risk dashboard, followed by wider communications across the organisation. And the dashboard will deliver clear benefits in terms of capturing, updating and consuming risk information. I can also confirm that we've completed our review of the place strategic risks following the swap audit, and the finalised set will be included in the Q2 reporting cycle presented to this committee on the 12th of January. As mentioned, Appendix A showcases the new risk management framework for Dorset Council, and this consolidates previously separate elements of risk management procedures and protocols, many shaped by this committee, into one central standard. And this will ensure a single version of the truth and align risk management efforts with the organisational objectives, including the council plan and our key deliverables. In line with the constitutional role, I'd like to invite the Audit and Governance Committee to endorse the framework, as you'll see in the report. And then finally, we've aligned our risk and performance reporting cycles to provide a unified set of data for SLT, Cabinet and committees, and this will improve transparency and enable smoother collaboration between those functions. Once again, thank you, and we're happy to take any further questions.
Obviously, we'll take up the invitation to receive a briefing and demonstration of enhanced, so we can organise that, please. Questions? No? Well, it's hardly worth waiting for, is it? But can we make sure that everybody can make that the most convenient time? I think that's well worth doing. Okay, well, that's thank you very much for coming. We move to the patiently waiting Julie Maskley for Grant Thornton audit progress.
Mr. Chairman, thanks very much indeed. Good evening, councillors. Can I just confirm you can hear me okay? Great. Julie Mashi, the engagement lead from Grant Thornton, External Audit, and I'm presenting the audit progress report to you this evening. I'll take the report as read, but just to give some very sort of high-level messages from the report. You will see the report is effectively in sort of two parts. The first half of the report is our update on the progress of all of our audit work. And then from page 11 onwards within the report, that covers just our sector updates, which is just there really for member information and provides members with a number of updates to some Grant Thornton and other sector-wide publications, but also some links to some helpful resources for audit committee members. So I'm not proposing to go through any of that specific detail at this time. The main content of the report is on page 145 to 146 of your papers. That's page 5 and 6 of my report. That gives you an update on the progress with both financial statements audits for both the council and that of the pension fund. We've been making very good progress with both audits over the last couple of months, and we've received really good cooperation from officers in response to our audit inquiries. You will see reference on page 145 that we are looking to report the findings from both audits back to this committee in November. You will see that we do highlight within the report that that is subject to any further residual work required in response to the outcomes of the recent building health and safety investigation findings. I would like to draw to the committee's attention some typographicals highlighted in the report. There is an erroneous reference to the building control team within the council, where we should be highlighting the building health and safety team. That's a different team that was referenced in the original report. That was corrected in a final report that we provided to officers, but unfortunately the earlier version was published as part of the audit committee papers. So I just want to clarify, any reference to building control in this report is in reference to building health and safety. You will see within the report specifically, we do highlight some of the consideration we as external audit have had in response to the detailed findings of the swap investigation, and what work we have therefore had to follow up and carry out ourselves in response to those findings, which effectively have two strands. The first one being in relation to our value for money assessment, and you'll see in reference to that on page 146 of the papers that we have carried out some further work as part of our value for money assessment, covering the wider governance, financial management and procurement findings from that review, and particularly considering the council's arrangements given the introduction of the new Procurement Act and the consideration of fraud prevention controls that now apply following the implementation of the ECTA Act 2023. Our value for money work is now concluded, and we have in fact this afternoon issued our draft value for money report to officers for their review, comments and management responses, and that value for money report will formally come back to this committee in November. In relation to the financial statements then, whilst all our key testing as far as our audit work concerned is progressing well, we will need to carry out some further specific work in response to the investigation. In any instance where a fraud or a suspected fraud is identified across any audit, there is enhanced risk management procedures that we're required to follow in response to that. And most importantly, what we're trying to identify is the scope or possibility that, given the issues identified in terms of the controls and the weaknesses identified in those controls, whether there is any possible risk of further occurrences of control override, given the significance of the matters that have been identified, to ensure that there are no other circumstances in which that may have happened within the financial statements that are currently subject to audit. So as part of those wider inquiries that we are making with management, we will also draw upon additional forensic accounting support to help us with that, to carry out some targeted completeness work to get that additional assurance around the completeness of the matters identified through SWAP's review. But we will give an update to the committee at the next meeting as part of our audit findings report. But fundamentally, just to make sure that committee are aware, that we will not be able to issue the final audit opinion until such time as the police investigative work has concluded. It is possible that further matters may arise off the back of that ongoing investigation, and therefore we have been advised to keep that audit opinion open until such time as that work has concluded. I'll stop there, Chair, but happy to take any specific questions. Thank you.
So do you have any specific questions? Councillor Haynes.
Not a specific question of Grant Thornton, but I think it is really poor that it was written as building control when it wasn't. Now, this council raises a considerable amount of money in order to fund building control by the reputation of building control. So therefore, I would really want that firmly minuted to go out with this report when we get the minutes done, because I think it's that's something that this is now in the public domain. Although, to be quite frank, I shouldn't think the public would ever be that interested in reading this sort of report, but nonetheless, it does bring that section of the council into disrepute by wrong naming it.
We entirely agree. It's an incredibly disappointing error. Building control, I'm sure, need an apology, and it needs to be pointed out. There's a huge difference between building control and building health and safety. And it's a function that anybody who's putting in a plan to his council will be well aware of, and I would think of concern, particularly to architects and other professionals. So hopefully this will be put right. You have other questions? I think we're probably all very disappointed about the speed the police are working at, and I believe the legal services have contacted them recently to try and ensure that this is sped up, because it's been a year, I believe, that we've been sat here waiting for it, being told we can't progress this, we can't progress that, because we're waiting for the outcome. So I think certainly from audit and governance point of view, if you are in contact with the police, it's extreme displeasure at the speed of this, because the outcome to us is extremely important. Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Simon Roach, Co-operative Member. Just a request, actually, on page 154, and then on following pages, there's a series of suggested questions that the Audit Committee might ask, helpfully. On page 154, it's about financial instruments, their identification, classification and measurement, etc. Can I request that we get a very short summary response to those questions as an action? Thank you, rather than we asking them here. Thank you very much.
And that'd be fine with you, Julie, to give those?
I think, Chair, these are intended to be challenge questions to the council. So if members would wish for a response, it would need to come through officers.
Yes, thank you. So unfortunately, we don't have any finance here other than portfolio holder, but I'm sure he's just about to reassure us that that will happen.
Well, he's not here to say no, is he? So yes, you can.
Any other questions? Neil.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Councillor Neil Isink, Egerton Ward. Just a question, really. I think last time you reported to the committee, Julie, you mentioned about service auditor reports or service audit reports in relation to work done by third parties. And I just wondered, in relation to how the work is progressing for the audits this year around that potential gap, whether you have any thoughts. I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot and say, you know, would this lead to a qualified audit report in relation to a limitation of scope or something like that? But just, I wonder whether you've got any specific thoughts about how you're going to manage that gap. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for the question through you, Chair. Specifically in relation to that issue around the service auditor reports matter, we did continue some further follow-up inquiries following the last committee to specifically understand from those third parties, with the level of access they're granted, what they are actually physically able to access and change within the pensions specific systems, if you recall, that particular third party issue was in relation to. And following those further inquiries, we've actually obtained a sufficient level of comfort around the sort of limited access that additional third-party access would allow, specifically into the accounting records. So clearly, within the UPM system, in terms of the pensions, obviously there's things that still need to be resolved, but looking at it from a point of view in terms of risk for the financial statements as a whole, we were satisfied that actually they were compensating controls that would sufficiently mitigate that risk for us. So specifically in relation to the third party issue, I'm not sitting here today, I'm not specifically concerned about any risk of qualification. However, we will still, of course, as we do with all of our recommendations, follow that up as part of our further audit work to make sure that the necessary controls are put in place to address the matter that was discussed at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was just looking for those questions that Simon brought up earlier on regarding, yeah, sorry, I must admit I hadn't spotted those. suggestions of questions for under a fair funding review. All right, okay. Thank you for that. Any more? Any other questions? So.
Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. I just wonder, on page 146, you say that you are formally writing to the Council. Have you written that letter yet? Because I'm not aware that it's arrived.
Yes, so the letter is written. It hasn't been specifically delivered to the council yet. We are going through a series of clearances and reviews with that letter. So we are very grateful for the patience that the council has had on this. As I said, these sorts of situations don't tend to happen very often. And so we just need to make sure that the specific scope of work that we are looking to seek assurance from management is of the appropriate level of scope. But certainly we would anticipate that being with you within the next day or so. It's literally within the very last stages of sign off at the moment.
Could I come back? So, having not yet received that letter, how does that affect your timescale? Because you talk about being ready to deliver an audit in November, and we've yet to even see the letter, and we'll have to work our way through it and go through our sign-off procedure. Then I'll have to go back to you, and you'll have to analyse it. It just feels like it's not going to hit your timescales.
So in terms of the November timeframe, our expectation is that all of the general audit work that we carried out, that is all run into time. And so in terms of the audit finance report that we're looking to bring back to the November meeting, that will come to that meeting. In terms of any further specific work in follow-up to the investigation, we do have until the end of February in terms of the statutory deadline to deliver the audit. Now, we would ideally like to not need to take that long, but as I've already highlighted, we are somewhat in the hands of the police in terms of what findings and outcomes come from their investigation as well. And it is possible that whatever comes out of that aspect of their inquiries and investigation work may also trigger further follow-up. So we have to keep fairly agile as we work through this. We're all in a bit of sort of new territory as far as this is concerned. So our intention is to bring the audit finance reports for both the Penford and the Council back to the November meeting with everything other than the specific investigative follow-up work completed. And then we will obviously have the opportunity then, once officers have had a chance to formally consider my letter and provide a response, that will then help us to determine how we then target any further completeness work alongside any police work that is currently obviously ongoing. I hope that helps clarify.
Well, it's an interesting question, actually. So if the police don't come back by the end of February, will you qualify the accounts with a specific paragraph accompanying the accounts, or will you ignore it, supposing they come back with something that no one's thought of or wasn't aware of?
So through you, Chair, that there are specific circumstances that we are able to go beyond the statutory backstop date, particularly where under the legislation we are seeking to potentially exercise any additional auditor powers. Now, depending on where things go with that investigation, we will of course be continuing to discuss this with officers. We will look to make our own inquiries around where the current situation is with the police, but we will need to think about what impact that will have on our opinion. Now, it could be that actually from the follow-up work that we do in terms of the additional forensic work, we get to a conclusion quite quickly, one way or another, what that will mean for the opinion. And I'm not in any way trying to prejudge the outcome here, but it is possible that whatever results come out from that initial test may dictate the outcome anyway. So we just have to react and respond to this as we go through. But there is scope within the legislation to go beyond that date in very specific circumstances.
Okay, thank you very much. Jonathan, did you want to just make a comment on that?
Chairman, Jonathan Mayer, Director of Legal and Democratic. Just one point that I need to be clear about: the police investigation. So the police investigation is not a referral that Dorset Council made to the police, and the police investigation is not an investigation of fraud within the council. And this might be something that influences where the external auditors go with this, because the police are not investigating fraud within the council. They came to us because they were already investigating a supplier and a former temporary member of our staff who were both involved in the health and safety compliance work. So that is not an investigation of Dorset Council itself and fraud within the council. It's a separate investigation being undertaken by the police, which could have relevance to us, but it's most definitely not an investigation of Dorset Council and fraud within this council. And that might influence, as I say, where the external auditor goes.
Thank you for that. I think it's a matter of opinion as well, so we'll come to that at a later stage. Anybody else? Anything else for Julie? No? Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move to 10, which is the update on our future council. Lisa Cotton will be pleased to give a verbal update, it says.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening to committee. Lisa Cotton, Corporate Director for Transformation, Customer and Cultural Services. So really here to provide the regular update to committee on the latest period of progress for our future council, Transformation. We are actively progressing the design and delivery of our future operating model, which includes our customer and business support hubs and the delivery of our transformation office. And we are now close to concluding an extensive consultation and engagement that has taken place with all of our employees impacted by that future operating model. And that's ensuring that the design is shaped by those closest to delivery and aligned to our organisational priorities. And it's been really important to say that we have been listening and learning to the feedback and the engagement from our workforce throughout this process. On Thursday night, we attended Cabinet to bring forward the investment required to deliver the essential technology for our new ways of working. This has been included in previous reports to the Council. This is now a process that we will be following over every 6 months of our periods of delivery. So we'll be bringing back the investment that's required to deliver our transformation and also reporting on progress and delivery so that we're really capturing the benefits and the delivery progress along that procedure. So the investment required is going to include our digital customer contact solution, our enterprise resource solution, which again has been reported to previous committees, Cabinet in particular, which is our extensive human resources and finance systems. So that is a very big piece of technology that we are bringing into the organisation. And also, importantly, the skills and capacity required to deliver change to all of those technologies across the organisation. So this is absolutely about us enabling the support required to work in that more accessible and efficient way, enabling our teams to work in a more effective and efficient way, and also for us to be able to have those modern, up-to-date technologies that we need in the organisation. So within that Cabinet report, we were also able to update on our current forecast for savings, and this at this period is at forecasted at 6.7 million for this year, and that will be continued to be updated as we progress. So just on a quick governance update, in June we brought Audit and Governance an overview of how we manage and oversee our transformation at Dorset Council, and since then we have strengthened our approach by refreshing our design authority, and that is under the leadership of our Chief Executive. So the Design Authority will act as our thinking engine for change, ensuring that every transformation proposal is properly thought through. It will fit and ensuring that it fits with our council priorities and our strategic vision, and looking at those benefits and expected outcomes. So really bringing that one council approach around all of our change and transformation, and ensuring that we're driving that and looking at the cost of delivering change. So back to a previous comment in the change in the chamber. So ensuring that we understand the cost of delivering change and really identify the benefits and outcomes that we are ensuring we're delivering to. That design authority will also be able to challenge and guide and even sometimes pause or redirect projects to make sure that we're always heading in the right direction. In addition to our design authority, our governance framework includes our dedicated programme board, which is all of our members of senior leadership team and key members of our transformation office, and our cross-party member steering group. That ensures we've got robust oversight and transparency and alignment with our strategic priorities, as well as that commitment to return to Cabinet every 6 months to refresh that invest and save approach. We also commissioned independent assurance from South West Audit Partnership with no concerns raised to date, but that's at that early stage of that assurance and early stage of that governance, and we'll be inviting South West Audit Partnership to come back and review how we're progressing and how we're embedding that governance as we progress. That's the conclusion of the update for this month, Chair, but we remain committed to providing regular updates to you as we continue to deliver to our transformation milestones.
Thank you. Do you have any questions at this stage? Mr. Roach.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Simon Roach, co-operative member. A comment and a request. The comment is that in the financial summary on page 58, it talks about low confidence in some of the benefits that are going to be delivered this year. I think it focuses on consolidation, third-party spend, vacancies and voluntary redundancy. And if I understand correctly, we've gone from a £10 million opportunity this year to £5 million from the July report to now £6.78 million. So it's shifting around a bit, let's say. But then at paragraph 13.93, it says the shortfall is not unexpected. Well, I guess my observation is if it's not unexpected, why was it baked into the budget in the first place? That seems to be incongruous in my mind. And then we also have a risk that is sitting in the risk management register, risk 805, that has a likelihood, I suppose you'd call it. And that talks about, due to the current levels of resourcing, the organisation's transformation work may not achieve its objectives, leading to incomplete benefits to service delivery, customer experience and cost savings. But again, incongruous to that, I hear very positive noises coming about how this programme is really going to deliver all its benefits. But yet we seem to have a very likely risk sitting out here that it's not. And so that sort of preamble for my request, which is the previous section 151 officer said really he's bringing updates to this committee to help ensure risk governance. And so my request is, can we please focus on risk and risk mitigation and what's being done about that in this transformation programme? Because transformation, unlike anything else we do, we're sort of going into the unknown, even though we've got help from maybe third parties that have done it before. They haven't done it here before. And whenever you go into the unknown, you can't predict the future. And therefore risk is critically important to keep a really close eye on. And so if we've got a role to play around risk oversight, can we really pay attention to that at this committee, please? So in order to do that, it would be helpful not just to have a verbal update, which seems to be the norm on this item, but have some focused, short material about the risk situation with the programme that we can engage in at the committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Happy to do that, Lisa?
Yes, certainly happy to bring back a report around risks and risk mitigation. And just to pick up on the comment around the changes with the finances, that is due to us being in a really complex change programme, but also waiting for the outcomes of our engagement and consultation with staff, and including a voluntary redundancy scheme. So we had to report in period 4 that there were low confidence, because until we went through some of those processes, we were unable to update those forecasts. But that is where we are now. We are able to provide more confidence around those in-year savings now.
Thank you. In a similar vein, following on under the risk management perspective, I'm very conscious that there's a great reliance going forward on new technologies, but also in the back of my mind, we've seen some very, very high-profile cyber attacks affecting organisations, not just financially, but in terms of operations, most famously Jaguar Land Rover recent times, which caused a massive paralysis to their complete supply chain. I would want us to be absolutely reassured that our cybersecurity and our business continuity plans are robust, so that if we do experience any form of glitch in the rollout of new technologies, or we are the victims of a cyber attack at some point, that we can have some form of business as usual going on.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, absolutely. Cyber is one of our high risks as an organisation, and we are reviewing. We have already invested more in our cyber work, and as we review our future structures, there is also that ongoing requirement for us to ensure that we've got the right support in place and the right skills in the organisation to make sure that we have all of that covered. But it is always under continual review, and we will always keep Chamber updated with that.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm grateful to the Corporate Director for the verbal update. Just an observation on tonight's meeting, though, has been the presence of verbal updates and reports for noting. That falls a little bit short of what I feel certainly this committee is about. We're here to play a rather more robust role than that, so I do hope one of the feedbacks will be that they should be used sparingly in future. We're here to do a job, not just nod it through.
Chair, so if I could just point Councillor Parry to page 110, which is the risk appetite for security for ICT, which is the only one which has absolutely no appetite for any risk-taking whatsoever. So I hope that gives a bit of assurance there. If I could also just give Elisa a bit of a pat on the back. So yes, the programme has slipped and the savings target has changed. That's because the original ambition was to deliver a consultation starting in August. Having consulted with the unions, there's a lot of pushback. That's holiday period, and you're going to do it all in one go. So she and the team put in a structured consultation instead of doing it all in one go that took 3 and a bit months, with then a month to respond to everything. So everything naturally slipped. So I think it slipped, but for the right reason. And I think Lisa and the team deserve a lot of thanks for the extremely hard work they're putting in on what is a very complex programme. I hope that helps, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Well, thank you, Lisa. And move to the work programme. Anybody have any additions or questions? No. 12 is urgent items, there are none. 13 is exempt business, there is none. So that brings the matter to the meeting to a close at 2013. Thank you.